Want to go from sewing to fashion design? Let's talk about how I plan to do that without a degree. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about steps that I'm planning to take to learn fashion design without a degree. Now I want to start by saying that I'm not saying this is necessarily going to replace a degree, but we are living in a world where we have more information at our fingertips than ever before, and a lot of us are highly motivated. Maybe we didn't even have the opportunity to go to school for something like this, and there are definitely ways that we can learn and achieve those goals. So I want to talk to you about my strategy for that. Now, taking this journey from sewing to fashion design, I also am going to be sharing that on this channel. A big part of my channel is going to be sharing the journey of learning fashion design. I've mentioned it before, but I'm really getting ready to dive in heavy. I have a list here I have made with strategy and also lots of resources. So if anyone else is wanting to take this journey, wanting to learn, I'm certainly going to share what I know. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just taking the journey myself, but I have done a lot of research and sort of come up with a plan. Now, the first thing that I am doing, the first plan of action is I have quite literally made myself a school schedule. Now, I realize not everybody has the same amount of time to dedicate towards learning. So I would say if you have less time, that you're just going to have to prioritize which aspects of fashion design you want to dive into first. Where you want to spend that time or what you think is the most practical and valuable to start with. Really, you just want to tailor what you want to learn to your life and to what is going to be the most beneficial for you. So I will talk to you a little deeper about aspects of this schedule later on, but the first step for me is coming up with a schedule no matter what your schedule looks like, just keeping yourself accountable to what you want to learn. Number 2 on my list for how I plan to learn fashion design is basically the areas of study. So this is going to go into your schedule that I was just talking about, what sorts of things you might want to look into. Now, I think for a lot of people that maybe are more limited on time, you might be looking at pattern drafting as your number one point of focus. For me, on my current schedule, I have a combination of pattern drafting, draping classes, fashion history, sewing, fashion illustration, art/digital art as well. And then I just added in a bonus of gathering inspiration, creating mood boards, taking photos when I'm traveling, anything that might inspire and get my wheels turning in terms of designs that I ultimately end up creating down the road. So if I have anybody that is brand new to all of this, sewing included, I would 100% say that sewing would be the place to start out of everything, just because my instinct anyway, I'm not, a teacher at a university or anything like that. I'm very much here to learn myself. But I think having those foundational sewing skills are going to be really important, because if you're pattern making, etc., you've got to know what you want to do with it once something is draped on the form or cut out. So I would 100% start with the sewing skills if you are diving into this from the ground up. So for me, picking areas of study was the first thing, because that's going to tie into the next step. So that brings me to gathering materials. That was the next thing on my list, is once I figured out how I wanted to lay out my schedule, what I wanted to spend my time on, then I decided, okay, I need to look at some of the classes I plan to take, look at some of the books I plan to use, which we will discuss here momentarily, and see what practical things I need to be able to do the hands-on work required to learn this skill. So for example, draping. I'm going to want a practical dress form to drape on, to pin on, to be able to work on. That's probably not going to work for just every mannequin. Some are display only, so you're going to probably want something functional. But for pattern making, for example, maybe the barrier to entry is going to be a little bit lower because it's rulers, a couple tools for marking your notches, etc. But the main thing here is figuring out what class you want to take, what book you want to follow. Sometimes there are projects within the books, and what tools are going to be required to do that, so that you can actually put your hands on and do the tactile learning. So the fourth part of my strategy to learn fashion design without a degree is to have good resources. So those can be the classes I plan to take, the books, those things, and I have a list. So I am going to tell you all the things I'm going to be utilizing. I will leave links to everything in the description box, so that if anybody finds any of this helpful, you have the resource to go to and check out for yourself. So let's start with the websites. I am already on there. I have been using this for a while, but again, if anybody is watching that wants to dive into fashion design as well, and they've never sewn or they're very new to sewing, I would highly recommend sewitacademy.com by Mimi G. There is a great combination of sewing classes, pattern drafting classes, but it kind of goes through in a nice order for the most part as well. There's even a fashion illustration course. But if you're new, getting those basic sewing skills is a good place to start. And Mimi G and her Sew It Academy is really good because we can do patterns all day long, but when you're new, being able to visually see what somebody means by a term you've never heard of before is going to be absolutely imperative for learning, in my opinion. So when I was new, I used a combination of sewitsacademy.com combined with the big four patterns. So your Simplicity, Butterick, McCall's. But when I would purchase a pattern, I would go on YouTube before purchasing the pattern and see, does anyone have a tutorial on this? Or does Simplicity have a tutorial on this? You know, I would choose easy patterns, ones that had tutorials, so that I had that visual aid to connect the dots of the terminology, which is really a big part of learning to sew. It's like another language. So learning what things mean is going to take you very far. Now for the fashion design part, here are the websites I am currently using / going to be using a lot more. I have just scratched the surface of starting this, but I am going to be using domestika.org. I've done a couple drafting classes on there already and really enjoyed that. Now, domestika.org is very similar to like Udemy, Skillshare, which also have classes on there. And I know at least with Domestika, there is like a subscription model, but I think you can buy individual classes as well. I'm not sure exactly the different options for Udemy and Skillshare, but it's going to be kind of a similar format with very specified classes you choose from. And they do have projects most of the time as part of those classes, which is really great, again, because you're getting a tools list, you're getting practical application. But with Domestika, I will say they are a very language-friendly platform. So there are classes in many different languages. It's not always going to be an English-speaking class. They will typically have either English overdub or subtitles in English and other languages as well. So that's just something to look at before you buy a class on there and decide if that is for you, if you're okay with a subtitle situation. That's really an individual choice. For me, I'm fine with it, and I have really enjoyed my time on there. But I will leave a link to them down below. And like I said, Udemy and Skillshare is another option to check out. Now, another platform, and the one that I think is probably going to have the biggest impact, is universityoffashion.com. This is another subscription model, but it is just full of lectures and classes on just about every aspect of fashion design you can think of. And if you click on the drop-down menu, you'll see that there are different areas of study, and that when you go to any of those areas of study, the classes are laid out from beginner, intermediate to advanced, so that you are learning sequentially in those subject areas. And it really, really is geared towards home learning. It's just full of great information, and I really think that is going to be one of the best tools that I'm going to be able to utilize, and that if you don't know about, I think it's really worth checking out. Now let's move on to books, because as much as I am a visual learner, I want a book reference and I want a real book. If many of you at home are e-reader people, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong with that, but I am such a physical book girly. I probably should cut down on that some, to be honest, because it does take up space and stuff. But I'm going to show you some physical books for different areas of this studying that I am doing. So the first one I've talked about briefly before, which is this Fabric for Fashion, the Swatch book by Clive Howlett and Amanda Johnston. And this is a book that is literally just what it sounds like. It's about fabric. There are all different swatches that you can feel. It's very, again, tactile. And you can familiarize yourself with the quality and appearance of different fabrics, how they behave, etc., etc. As things are going more and more online, I think having something like this is going to be really helpful when you are searching out fabrics to purchase. So this is a great investment. I believe that Minerva.com also has a book like this, because I found out about that one after I already had ordered this, but I'm definitely going to leave a link to them down below as well. I am a brand ambassador for them now, and they have so much great stuff, great fabrics, all sorts of goodies. So I will leave a link to that as well for you in the description box. So let's talk about pattern making books. Now this book here is probably in one book going to be the most comprehensive that I have at least purchased at this point, and that is Pattern Making for Fashion Design by Helen Joseph Armstrong. This was a book recommended to me by Helen Castillo. She told me that she still uses it to this day as reference, and that this is what she would highly recommend. I trust her judgment implicitly on this stuff, and man, just flipping through it, I I'm sold. This has so much information. So if you were going to get one book on pattern making, I probably would start here. Now, the next pattern making books that I'm going to be utilizing are a series. So this is how I was saying one is really comprehensive solo. This is broken down a little bit more specifically into areas of pattern design, certain garments, things like that. So they both are going to have their benefit. And this is Fashion Pattern Making Techniques Volume 1 by Elisabetta Kuki-Drudy. I hope I'm saying that right. And this has so much great information inside as well. And after taking the Domestika course on pattern drafting tailored trousers, I really understand the layout of this book and the explanations for all the point drawings a lot more. So I think it was really helpful to take that class initially, because this now makes a lot more sense to me. And then I have also purchased volume 2. There's a whole series though, and eventually I would like to have this entire series. Okay, next up is the only book that I have on this subject so far, but that is Draping the Complete Course. This is the second edition by Carolyn Kiesel. Again, hope I'm saying these names correctly. And this also seems very comprehensive to me, all the way from your tools, various practical projects. And I haven't gotten to this yet because I'm still waiting on a couple things to start my draping here, but it comes with 40 video tutorials. So I'm thinking there's a tutorial for each project in here, which is fantastic because we're adding the visual to the text learning. So I feel really good about this book as well. Now, all of these books I did a lot of reading on reviews and things for. So again, I can't give like a full review because I haven't worked my way fully through any of these books yet, but they are ones that had a lot of positive reviews, and that in flipping through and doing a little bit in, I think are going to be very, very good books to have. So the next one is on fitting. This is the fitting book by Gina Renee Dunham. And this is an area that I really want to work on as well, is just getting better fit when you have, fit issues on different things or something's not quite sitting right. You're able to kind of go in and there are drawings and things that kind of show the issue and how to correct that issue, and also just generally how to fit certain areas of a pattern or a garment. And I love tailored pieces. I know that's going to be a big part of what I like in fashion design. So this is really important for anybody, but I know I really want to get a good handle on this for the type of clothes that I like. All right, the next couple of books are art specific. And the reason that I'm diving into this is because I really want to design and have my own fabrics printed. And I always joke that literal art, drawing and painting, is sort of the art form that skips me. I'm okay at it, but I am not great at it. But I would like to be able to do that, so I at least want to improve upon those skills enough to do some simple pattern design and to also be able to do my fashion sketches. So there are lots of great online classes for fashion illustration, including a couple on Mimi G's website, the Sew It Academy, and also University of Fashion has a ton. So I'm mostly utilizing those videos for that specific purpose. But for general sketching, I really like florals. When it comes to prints, I'm drawn to florals. So I decided to start with this botanical line drawing, which is about as beginner friendly as you can get. This is the whole book. It literally just shows you step by step what to draw, and you practice. That is it. So I didn't want anything overly fussy, overly complicated for this sort of thing. So this is a botanical line drawing by Peggy Dean. This is where I'm going to start for that. I know I will be using line drawing for a lot of things, but my favorites are when florals look almost watercolor-like. So for painting, I'm going to be focusing on learning some watercolors, specifically florals. This is Everyday Watercolor by Jenna Rainey. So this book just has all sorts of little kind of mini tutorials teaching you general touch with your brush, how to release, how much pressure, how much water, etc. And going through a variety of little lessons. It's supposed to be learn to paint watercolor in 30 days. So we'll see how this goes. Again, I'm taking some online classes, mostly YouTube on this one for watercolor, but maybe I'll dive into another Domestika course or something if I feel like I'm really enjoying it. But I got this book for watercolor. All right, and the next two books are probably the most specific. So you may or may not have an interest in this. This is personally something I have an interest in. It's another way that I'm going to be able to create some custom printing. I took a class a few years ago at an art center on eco-printing. So using flowers and leaves to print directly into natural fiber textiles. So your linens, 100% cotton, silk. And absolutely loved it. I've been interested ever since. So I picked up Grow Your Own Color by Rebecca Desnos, which focuses a lot on dyeing. And this one here, Botanical Inks, Plant to Print Dyes, Techniques, and Projects. So this is just to take a deeper dive into that. Again, will link them. I won't get too much into this right now, but you will probably see some of that float into the channel at some point as well. All right, we have 2 more steps for my plan to learn fashion design without a degree. And that number 5 on the list is homework. So I'm going to be giving myself homework. It's really great because a lot of these classes sort of provide that for you. The draping book has projects in it, but there's nothing like hands-on learning. We can read all day long, but it's different to get a physical, tactile feel for it. So absolutely, I'm going to be pouring myself into using what I'm learning in a practical way so that I grow the skill. And number 6 on this list is sharing the journey. So clearly I have a YouTube channel here. You can all see that. But fashion design is something I've wanted to do for such a long time, and I want to share that experience with you. The good, the bad, the ugly, what's working, what isn't working. Because we all learn from each other. We all have a bit of knowledge that the other person doesn't have, and I have a bit of knowledge that they don't have, and sharing in community is also one of the best ways to learn. So I want to sort of document this process, and even though I do a lot of like fabric hauls, some vlogging, different things like that, I'll still do that, but I definitely think that the journey to fashion design is going to be a big part of this channel. So really looking forward to that. And if you are somebody, whether you are self-taught, whether you have a degree, and you have any tips or resources that you think are invaluable, leave it down in the comments. Again, we all know something, and I would love any information you have or anything you think has been helpful to you and integral to that journey. So if you enjoy this type of content and you are interested in coming along for this journey to learning fashion design, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I hope some of the resources are helpful to many of you, and I'm just so excited to dive into this. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will see you soon. Bye.